right, hey guys, this is going to be
Welcome back.
the first session, number 1, for us introducing more of the topic of sons. So remember, we got the Father,
Buckle up.
we got the sons, and we got the kingdom. Father, the sons, the kingdom. And at the center is family. And remember, God is after family. Our Father wants us to be family with him. And remember, it's not a metaphor. It's literal. We are literally
the real McCoy.
The real McCoy. So understanding that, remember, everything that we experience on earth, the types of relationship that God gave us, the temple, all these other interesting things that you read about in the Old Testament and the New Testament that Jesus says, those are just shadows of a greater reality. And the greater reality, real reality is that he's your Father and we are his children. So we're going to jump into this topic, and it's going to be interesting for some of us, because it's going to be the first time you've ever heard some of this content.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting for a lot of us. And let's just say this up front. As we're going through this, we may bring up some things that you have never heard before. Not saying that they're new, just saying that you may have never heard them. So if your spirit, if your mind just immediately hears something that we say and wants to, that's not true. Just going to ask you, don't do that. Don't stiff arm it. Don't immediately shut it out, because that's just going to, I don't want to get into the details, but it's going to create a record in you that's going to be very hard to overcome. So what we would just ask is that you hear what we say, that you just kind of let it sink in, and that you continue to do what we've been talking about this whole time. Go spend time with the Father, bring up this stuff to him and say, I don't know what this is. Can you help me? And the Holy Spirit will. If things are not meant to, if these seeds that we're saying, words are seeds, if these seeds go into you and they end up not being needed, so be it.
That's right.
But they may be needed either now or at a time either in the short future or distant future. We just don't know.
That's right. So, when we think about our identity as sons of God, I did the same thing with sons of God, children of God, being born of God, adoption, seed, all of these types of word studies that I did. If you look in the Old Testament, there's really only 6 places in the Old Testament where there's this phrase, sons of God, that occur. In the New Testament, I've got this PDF that's available along with this teaching that's got over 100 scriptures that talk about us being sons of God, children of God, adopted, born of, begotten, the seed, understanding what it means to be reborn, born again, new life, new creation, first fruits, firstborn, all this stuff. And the purpose of the word, remember, is to get it in us and let it produce the real thing. What's the real thing? The real thing is, this is true. I believe this like I'm breathing air. I believe this like I believe gravity. I believe it as much as I believe anything I can taste, touch, see, smell, any of it. That's the whole purpose. But in order for us to understand who we are as sons in God, we have to go back to the beginning.
Yep.
So we're going to start in the beginning. Dan has done a lot of research on this stuff through some different content that he's read, books that he's read, videos he's watched, teachings he's been a part of. And so he's going to be really kind of anchoring this talk, this dialogue, and I'm going to be pushing on stuff, asking questions. But I'm going to let you jump into it. But we're going to start in the Old Testament, 6 references that say sons of God. And I'm just going to read some of these to you real quick so you have a grid for what we're talking about, because there's this phrase, sons of God, Old Testament, written in Hebrew, sons of God. What is that in Hebrew? B'nai Elohim.
Yeah.
B'nai Elohim.
Yeah.
And what that means is, and you heard the word in that, B'nai Elohim. Elohim.
Yeah.
And that's, we think, as modern Christians, that is a name relegated only to God, Elohim.
Yeah.
There's the Lord Most High, El Elyon, and he is the Most High.
Yes.
But then there's the B'nai Elohim, and here's some of the references. Genesis 6:1-4, when human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and the daughters were born to them, the sons of God, B'nai Elohim. saw the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. It's very, very interesting language.
What?
And then there's a few more
That's
references.
in the Bible.
Got a few more, 3 more references in Job and 1 in Hosea.
Wow. Wow. So when we read things like that, like Genesis 6, 1 through 4, if you were to say to someone before reading that, you would say, hey, Joel, did you know that there were actual beings on the earth that were half man, half deity?
What? What are you talking about?
And Joel, it's in the Bible.
What?
Yes.
No, it's not.
Okay, so that's what we're looking at. Like
Right.
that kind of far-fetched idea that seems way over here.
Yeah.
It's very, very real.
But to the Hebrews, the Hebrew culture, they'd be like, well, yeah, this is a normal thing.
Yeah, we
for
knew that
them.
happened.
And for us, remember, like what we're going to be talking about is how influenced our culture is in the year that we're in, the era that we're in. We're in the United States, so we're in the West, and how much the West has been impacted by the Enlightenment, which basically minimalizes rather, like things that are spiritual in nature.
Yeah.
The spiritual reality.
Yep.
Where what we do as
Yep.
believers in the West is often compartmentalize those things, and we create separate understandings of
Yes.
reality that are physical and spiritual. The Hebrews didn't even know how to do that because it's one reality.
Yes.
It's the spirit, there's
Yes.
unseen realm, and there's a seen realm. Hebrews 11 talks about it. It's like, by faith, we know that everything that is seen was made by that which is unseen.
Yeah.
So that not only that is what is physical real, but what is spiritual and unseen is more real, right? And so this is some of the realities we're getting into, but if we don't understand what Scripture and Genesis, and Job, and Hosea, what they mean when they say Benai Elohim, sons of God, if we don't understand that, we do not understand what Jesus means when he starts describing the word coming as a son.
Yes.
And what we're invited into.
Oh my gosh.
But so we have to back up. We have to talk about the Old Testament. And so I'm going to let you just kind of expand a little bit on the history of this. What does a Hebrew think of when they think Benai Elohim?
Yeah, so let's dive in. So Dr. Michael Heiser, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with him, but he is a scholar that has studied this stuff for literally decades. The unseen realm, he studied both the Hebrew text and ancient Semitic languages. So he just has a wealth of knowledge.
Yep.
I mean, it's incredible. And he's written over a 400-page book, which I've read several times. Currently reading it again because it's just so dense, right? And so what he talks about is this exact thing. So he talks about Elohim. So yes, there's B'nai Elohim, but Elohim is just a term that means just a divine being, right? Elohim is a divine being. The verse and really the chapter in the Bible that really gives a incredibly clear depiction of how real this is Psalm chapter 82. And it starts off, verse 1 says, in the English, God presides in the great assembly, or the divine council.
Yeah.
He renders judgment among the gods. And in English, gods is in quotes, as if it's like, he renders judgment among idols that
are made of wood.
Or glass, whatever.
Yep.
In Hebrew, it reads, Elohim presides in the divine council or the great assembly. He renders judgment among the Elohim.
Yeah, the Elohim renders judgment among the
So
Elohim.
it's singular in the first phrase,
right.
Plural in the second phrase.
Right.
There is a distinction. So all Elohim are not the Elohim.
Right.
But they're all divine beings.
Right.
Okay, so just understand that, right?
There's one El Elyon. El Elyon
Yes.
means The Most High.
God
The Most
High.
Right.
Yes. Right.
There's one.
Yes, exactly. And if you go on in chapter Psalm 82, it goes on to say, sons of God, B'nai Elohim, you have been given these nations to judge them justly. But instead, you are going after the widows. You're going after the orphans. You need to be taking care of them.
Right.
And then at the very end, the writer of Psalm 82 comes back, and the very last verse says, rise up, O God, and judge the earth, for all the nations are yours. And
all the nations.
It's like, what does that mean? Okay, well, let's dive into it a little bit. Okay, again,
this is going to get good.
I could go so deep into this. I'm going to try and keep it very
concise.
Very concise. And yeah, just a little bit. Just so we have an understanding and we can all move forward and be on the same page. Okay.
That's right.
So we think of the Tower of Babel. We think of, there's a tower that got built and God just said, I'm going to confuse them and give them all different types of languages and disperse them. Right. The reality that is what happened in the taste, touch, feel realm. Right. But there's always a parallel realm to what we can see and what we know about. And that's the unseen realm. What's happening in the unseen realm? Well, in Deuteronomy 32, verses 8 and 9, it basically says, at the Tower of Babel, God inherited Israel, this land. He inherited the people of Israel and said, these are going to be my people, and I will be their God, right? It also, by doing that, it also is saying, I am disinheriting all the other nations. And stop and think about that for just a second. And at first it's like, okay, whatever.
Why is this important?
Think about how all of the world still today is all pitted against this one little plot of land, Israel.
It's
so true.
like, yeah.
Because it is God, Most High, Yahweh, versus all these other B'nai Elohim, these sons of God that have been given the right by God Most High to rule over these different geographical locations.
Yes.
You see an example of this in Daniel.
Abraham, go to the land I will show you. There's a land that the Lord has for Abraham.
Yes. And, Daniel, you can see this spiritual realm. He gets a glimpse into this when he says, the angel comes to him and says, hey, I was caught up by the prince of Persia for a little bit. Who's that prince of Persia?
The ruling deity.
It's a B'nai Elohim. Yes.
That's right.
It's a governing deity over that territory. And, okay, I said governing deity. It's not...
Doesn't mean it's
good. It's still monotheism, right? There's only one God Most High, but there are, again, spiritual, forces, divine beings that exist just like you have here. So, for example, here on earth, we've all heard of Pharaoh, right? So Pharaoh is this godlike figure to the Egyptians. Whoever is the Pharaoh, right below them is their family. And they get to rule with their family. And then you have a hierarchy tier, right, that goes down and down till eventually you have servants or messengers. Angel in the Hebrew literally means messenger. Mm-hmm. So we think the angels came to Daniel, to Mary, and they are basically like God. Well, they are the lowest. Their task is we're messengers. In Pharaoh or God's house.
In God's house.
In God's house.
Yeah.
Right? In his kingdom, we are the messengers. Okay? So you just have to understand this so we can move forward and understand what the B'nai Elohim are, or the sons of God, because then we can understand who we are. Those sons of God are all divine, strictly divine beings. They come down into the earth, and that's what we were just read in Genesis 6, 1-4. They come down into the earth. Not only do they come down, but they, again, are doing things unjustly. They see human women create with them to create these half deity, half man beings.
Nephilim.
The Nephilim.
Right.
What a strange term, but they are
Yeah.
they're basically giants,
Right.
right? And there's records of them, all that stuff, and we won't go into that. Okay,
So, the caveat at the beginning that Dan shared was, if this is going to be, this is the first
Try to
time
tell
that
you.
so many people
Try
have
to tell
heard
you.
this news, but it's important because if we do not understand the framework and the grid that all Hebrews
Yeah.
clearly understood this, we won't understand this. And so I'm just going to read this real quick. 2 Corinthians 10. This is verse 3. Though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds, demolish arguments, every pretension that sets itself up against the true knowledge of God. Because our true enemy is a spiritual
Yes.
entities.
More real.
It's a substantive thing. It's not just like it's like here's the physical and here's the spiritual, and we have a very simple understanding of what heaven is and what spiritual beings are, and there's God and there's Jesus and the Holy Spirit and angels. It's a lot more complex than what we've been told.
Yes.
And if we don't understand the complexity, we're not going to understand what we're invited into.
Yes.
Okay.
So more examples. So again, now we understand what Elohim is. Now we still have to understand what the divine council is, or the great assembly. The divine council is, this is going to sound really strange to us, but to the Hebrews who wrote the Bible, we have to get into
Right.
their
Mindset.
worldview, right?
Right.
And it was so we have to understand what they were thinking. The divine council is basically God sitting on his throne, and you see this over and over, and I'll give a couple of examples, but you see God on his throne, and you see thrones around him, right?
Right.
That is a picture. What you're seeing is a glimpse into the divine council. That's a place where God, again, he's all about family. So he has a family in the unseen realm just like he does the seen realm.
And just like a king has their family around them
Exactly.
to rule and govern with them and
Exactly.
create, God does too.
Exactly. And so what's happening in there is God sits on his throne and he says, hey, this needs to happen. Let's decide how this is going to happen.
Right.
And he allows us to do this with him. And I'm saying us, but he's allowing his council to do this with him. Okay. And you see this, the most blatant example is in 1 Kings chapter 22, when he talks about the prophet Micah, however you say it, and King Ahab at the time. I won't go into it. Incredible. You read it, 1 Kings chapter 22, and you're just like, what? I mean, it's so real to these people who wrote and read this text. It's more real than what you've been saying. It's more real than what we can see, taste, touch, feel. Yeah. Right.
And I'll just throw this out real quick. Think of Genesis 1:26. Then God said, Elohim said, "Come, let us make man in our likeness." And so this is a description of that. Of this, let's co-create. Let's build some things together collectively. You had mentioned earlier to me, it's like we're going to order a pizza, right? And what did you say?
Well, so think about if we're in the room and I say, Joel, hey, let's order a pizza.
And you're the father.
Yeah, and I'm God, and I say, Joel, let's order a pizza. What do you want? Pepperoni, sausage, supreme? What do you want? And you get to decide. You
extra
have a say.
Cheese,
extra cheese,
cheese stuffed crust,
all of it, right? So
right.
I am the one who then places the call to order the pizza. I'm the one, God. I'm the one who actually creates man.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, hey, let's make man in our image. Right?
Yes.
Wow. So now we understand that we are God's imagers.
Right.
Meant to literally bring Yahweh to all of creation.
Reconcile all things to the Father.
Adam and Eve were meant to do this.
Yes.
They messed up.
Right.
And they got kicked out.
Right.
Jesus comes.
Yes.
Reconciles all things back to him.
Yes.
Most importantly, he reconciles us to be adopted into the family, which is what he created Adam and Eve for.
Right.
To basically be quasi-divine human beings that are just always in God's presence and rule over creation with him.
Right.
That's who we've been made to be, right?
Yes.
And so now our role is Jesus comes on the scene, and he, at the foot of, Caesarea Philippi, Jesus says, "Who do people say that I am?" Peter says, "You're the Christ, the Son of the living God."
Yes.
Jesus says, "You're Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." If you're reading it from a fleshly taste, touch, feel perspective, Peter literally means rock. And so what we have done in the flesh is we said, "Oh, Peter's the rock. Let's make him the first pope. He's our first. He's the leader of the church. He's the first pope." Rightfully so.
It wasn't the person. It was the statement.
It was the statement. So listen to where they were. Caesarea Philippi. We've all heard, that's where Pan, and the temple and all these deities, this was a place you could come worship any god. That's not just it. It goes even deeper. Caesarea Philippi is the foot of basically this mountain, Mount Hermon, that the sons of God, it's believed to have, that's where they descended. Genesis chapter 6, they came down on Mount Hermon, okay, and then they're ruling unjustly. They're basically corrupt,
right?
But that's their mountain. That's ours,
right?
Jesus goes to the foot of that mountain and says, "On this rock, you think it's yours.
That's right.
On this rock, I will build my church."
It's capture the flag.
And now we're on offense.
Right.
And why do I say that? He says, "Now, this is where I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail." The gates are the last line of defense. They're not attacking. We are attacking.
Right.
So then it is like, boom, when you think of, okay, Jesus came back. Israel has been God's inheritance this entire time. But the whole earth, right? At Psalm 82, the whole earth is yours.
Right.
So now Jesus says, "Go forth into all the nations."
Bring it back.
Reclaiming them.
Re-inheriting them.
For not just me, Jesus says.
For the Father.
No, for us too, as saints. So in Daniel chapter 7, Daniel makes it very clear. So this is another picture of a divine council scene. Daniel chapter 7, there's the Ancient of Days sitting on his throne. Then there's another, so that's God, Most High. Then there's a one like a Son of Man who also enters the picture. That's the Son, that's Jesus. The Ancient of Days gives not only the Son of Man, basically his inheritance, which is all the nations, tribes, tongues, and peoples, but he also, in there, go read it, it says that the saints also have that same governing power.
Right.
So
we're brought into we are brought into the family.
So when you understand what is our inheritance,
mm-hmm.
What is this adoption into sonship?
So I want you to read Hosea 1:10 right here, and read this, because this is a unique phrase. This is the last time sons of God is described in the Old Testament, and Hosea. And with this understanding, you'll understand what Jesus is inviting us into.
Yeah. So Hosea 1:10 says, "Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured or numbered. And it shall come to pass in the place where it was said to them, You are not my people. There it shall be said to them, You are sons of the living God."
And that is B'nai El-Hay, which is different than B'nai Elohim.
Yeah.
B'nai El-Hay, the living God, the Most High, El Elyon. You are His sons. And that's the last time we hear it in the Old Testament, that type of sentiment is that we become sons.
Wow.
And then Jesus says, in John 1, I love how John 1 describes it, because it's a mirror image of Genesis 1 and 2.
Yes.
In the beginning, in the beginning. It's all the same images. In the beginning was the Word.
Yes.
And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, right? And it
Yeah.
says, all who believed in him, he gave the right to become B'nai Elhei.
Children of God.
Children of
Sons
God. Teknon hui, or hue, or I'm going to butcher that in the Greek. But we become children of God.
Quite literally.
Quite literally. And what happens in the West is we may think, you know what, that's great. Someday, maybe we'll become that. Jesus says, no, you just receive me and believe me.
Yes.
You're born of God. There's a now reality that we're likely not teaching in our churches. We're not teaching our identity as sons of God. And that when we think of being sons of God, that's why a revelation of him being a father is so important.
Yeah.
And an understanding of a Hebrew understanding
Yeah.
and worldview
Yeah.
of when this was written, of their spiritual understanding. That's one reality, it's
Exactly.
spirit and physical. They're not separate, and then you're trying to divorce the two from each other. It's one thing, and you are here to reconcile all things, bring
Wow.
all nations back to
Wow.
him, re-inherit all of it for Jesus, for the Father, for him, and he
Yep.
invites us into that.
Whew.
This was a longer video
Yeah.
than we wanted to do, but we knew that we had to set this up so you had a grid for where we are going.
Because buckle up. It's about to get fun.
It's going to get really fun.
Awesome. See you guys next time.
Bye.